So the Supreme Court's emergency order, which created a very significant battle between the state of Texas and the Biden administration over the border, has now led to a new decision on the border. However, that ruling might actually be brought into question. Now, really quick before we jump into this video, if you want to support this channel, please consider subscribing to the channel. Looking at some of my analytics, about 60% of all viewers are actually not subscribed, so consider doing that. Also, click the notification bell, turn on all notifications, because that helps to ensure that YouTube will actually send you these videos. As I mentioned in the intro, in this video, we need to talk about a significant decision that came out, which essentially upholds the state of Texas's right to refuse federal government access to certain areas along the Texas border. This ruling also blocks the federal government and also Border Patrol from cutting concertina wire or C-wire along those areas of the border. This is an issue that the Supreme Court recently actually got involved in on an emergency basis. And after that, the Biden administration tried to take the opportunity that was opened up by the Supreme Court to have the Fifth Circuit actually rule in their favor and then throw the entire case out. However, we recently received a final decision from the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals from a 3-judge panel. And in that ruling, that court blocked the federal government and Border Patrol from cutting C-wire along that Texas border, and it upheld the state of Texas' right to refuse entry into those certain areas along the Texas border. However, the Biden administration in its last days has now received an extension, and they have also stated that they may seek en banc panel review in the Fifth Circuit, or at the very least, they wanted an extension to give themselves more time to allow the Trump administration to decide if they want to continue this action going forward. So we need to break down what implications does this have for this lawsuit. Now, this case involves a recent Supreme Court 5-4 order, which overruled a temporary preliminary injunction that was granted by the Fifth Circuit 3-judge panel. The Fifth Circuit 3-judge panel decision prevented the United States Border Patrol from cutting, destroying, or otherwise interfering with C-wire that the state of Texas had put up along 29 miles of municipal and private land in the Eagle Pass area of Texas. Now, in this case, Texas originally sued the federal government, the Biden administration, and Border Patrol in a Texas federal district court, alleging that there was a trespass and then also violations of the Administrative Procedures Act, also known as the APA. Now, originally in the lower court case, Texas obtained a temporary restraining order which barred the federal government from interfering with that Texas C-wire along those areas, and the only exception for that was for medical emergencies. Texas later then sought a preliminary injunction which would have blocked this action during the entire review of this case. However, the lower court denied that actual request for a preliminary injunction. Now, what was interesting about that is the lower court actually admitted and sided with the state of Texas that the federal government and the Border Patrol did not need to cut C-wire for medical emergencies and then leave it open permanently. There was a big issue about that type of activity because that's what was going on. The lower court agreed with Texas that that was unnecessary, but despite that, they still ruled in favor of the Biden administration. Texas then quickly appealed that decision up to the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals, and along with that appeal request, Texas then sought an emergency temporary injunction. Essentially, the state of Texas appealed that lower court ruling up to the Fifth Circuit, and then at the same time, they asked for the Fifth Circuit to grant an administrative stay and an injunction on what happened in the lower court, and that would simply maintain the status, just keep everything the same while this case was being appealed at the Fifth Circuit level. The Fifth Circuit ultimately did grant that administrative relief. They granted that. They said, we're going to put all this on hold. Federal government, you can't cut this wire, stop that activity at least while we're reviewing this case. But of course, the Biden administration did not like that. So then they went to the Supreme Court on an emergency basis, and they asked for the Supreme Court to reverse what the Fifth Circuit said. They wanted the Supreme Court to remove that administrative relief so that they could still go in and cut the wire. But on review, the Supreme Court issued a 5-4 order which granted the federal government's request to vacate that administrative relief. So they sided with the Biden administration. The emergency order from the Supreme Court stated that application to vacate injunction presented to Justice Alito and by him referred to the court is granted. And then it states that Justice Thomas, Alito, Gorsuch, Kavanaugh would have denied the application to vacate the injunction. So what that means is you had, the traditional conservatives, the justices who were against this. They wanted to side with the state of Texas, but you had Amy Coney Barrett and Justice Roberts jump the line and side with the Biden administration. This case was then sent back down to the lower courts. It originally was to the Fifth Circuit, then the Fifth Circuit sent it all the way back down to the lower court to develop some evidence, and eventually it made its way back to the Fifth Circuit for oral arguments. The Fifth Circuit then issued their ruling on this case, and the Fifth Circuit ultimately decided to block the Biden administration and the federal government from entering and cutting wire along that Texas border. So that was a huge win for the state of Texas. Now, in that decision, the Fifth Circuit stated that we now rule that Texas is entitled to a preliminary injunction. Specifically, the United States clearly waived sovereign immunity as to Texas state law claims under Section 702 of the APA. That conclusion is supported by a flood of uncontradicted circuit precedent to which the United States has no answer. We also reject the United States' alternate arguments. The injunction is not barred by intergovernmental immunity because Texas is seeking not to regulate Border Patrol, but only to safeguard its own property. Nor, for similar reasons, is the injunction barred by the Immigration and Nationality Act. Finally, Texas has satisfied the injunction factors. Most importantly, the United States does not even contest that Texas has shown that it will likely succeed on the state law trespass claims. Accordingly, we reverse the district court's judgment and grant Texas's request for a preliminary injunction. The Fifth Circuit found in this ruling that the state of Texas is not trying to regulate Federal Border Patrol actions. Instead, they are simply claiming rights of exclusion on their own property. However, now the Biden administration has launched kind of a last-ditch effort to get this decision reversed and potentially get relief from a higher court. Initially, the Biden administration in the lead up to the election was in fact signaling that they were going to file for en banc panel review, that they anticipated that this lawsuit was going to continue, that they were going to fight that. And of course, that's because they believed Kamala Harris was going to get elected and that they would still have, the ability to contest these lawsuits and these rulings. However, now, since Trump won the election and is now the president, the Biden administration in the lead up and kind of this lame duck period changed their tune a little bit. What they decided to do now is they sought an extension from the Fifth Circuit so that they have an extension to seek en banc panel review, and they have not decided whether or not they're going to do that on their own or they're going to leave that up to the Trump administration to decide how they want to proceed forward with this case. There was also a period where the Biden administration was claiming that the Fifth Circuit order was unclear and that they believed they still had the right to cut C-wire at certain locations for claimed medical emergencies. They claimed that they could do that whether or not the federal government had access to both sides of the C-wire. So one of their strategies initially was to say, we don't understand your order, Fifth Circuit. We think we can still do this. We want clarification on this. But it appears, the recent notice that they filed to the Fifth Circuit, in some ways, the Biden administration might have finally waved the white flag. They are giving up on this and they have accepted their defeat. With Trump now as president and the Solicitor General's office, has in fact filed for an extension. They received that extension. And one of the main reasons I believe the Fifth Circuit actually granted that to them was because one of the main arguments in that notice was that Trump and his administration are going to take office and they need time to review this case and to decide what they want to do going forward. The Fifth Circuit granted that extension and it's out until February, so they have until February to review this. The Trump administration will have the opportunity to fully review it, decide how they want to proceed forward, and if they want to seek en banc panel review. But in my opinion, I think that is highly unlikely. I think they will allow Texas to have their win here. They will say, good on you, Texas. You defended your borders. You defended your residents. Take that win. We're not going to contest that. And we also know that Trump, in one of his main promises, is that he wants to fix the border. And so I don't see him contesting this and wanting a reversal up in the Fifth Circuit en banc panel. So I think the Biden administration's efforts to drag this out or to get this reversed before Trump actually took office is pretty much now done. And I think we can claim this as a huge win for the state of Texas, and we can claim a huge win for Texas and their right to defend their border. Of course, if anything changes, if anything develops in this period, if the Trump administration decides to do something different, I will let you guys know. If you like this video and you like to support the channel, one of the best ways to do that is to like, comment, and subscribe. All those things help to fuel the algorithm, and it signals to YouTube that you guys see value in these videos and in this type of 2A news. But as always, thank you all for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And never forget, this nation was built by armed scholars, and this nation will be maintained by armed scholars.